Welcome to the Hotel Tech Podcast. This is the show where we tackle your most pressing issues to bring your business more wins. Keeping up with technology is challenging. Our experts are here to help you figure it all out. Here's your hosts, Glenn Houseman and Estella Hale.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Hotel Tech Podcast. I'm excited to have you all here today, along with my amazing and intelligent, wonderful co-host, Estella Hale, Chief Product Evangelist with SHR. Of course, it stands for Scepter, Hospitality Resources. And you know she's one of the top tech minds in the industry, and I couldn't get my way through these podcasts without her. Estella, how are you today?
I am doing great. Thank you so much. Just very excited and a little exhausted after last week, but all good. All great.
Yeah, I think that's terrific. And I should tell everybody, hey guys, I'm Glenn Houseman. I'm co-hosting here with Estella. Don't want to forget about me. I am so desperate for attention, Estella, that I need to shout out myself repeatedly. I'm so sorry that you're exhausted. I'm even sorrier that I am not exhausted today because I did not have the opportunity to personally make it to HITEC this year. And that makes me sad because it's really one of the most invigorating events of the entire year. How did you feel in big picture about the overall vibe and tenor of the event?
It was fantastic. And of course, it was in the great city of Houston. So we were very gracious, welcoming hosts. And it is just a great city, a great venue. The convention center was just perfect for the amount of people that we had in the showcase, the amount of people that showed up, and of course, great food. I would put our food in our convention center against any convention center out there. The fact that we have a Papados and you can get a cup of seafood gumbo and some iced tea, I mean, how can it be better than that at a convention center?
Wow, this is blowing me away. But I mean, to be fair, you know, I'm sure the food is great. I don't want to take away from that, but I'm sure the bar is set really low. I've been to a lot of convention centers. I've never walked away from a convention center going, man, that was some great chicken. So I'm really glad that you found the dining experience adequate. And somebody else, I don't know about how they feel about food in Houston, and that's Doug Tucker. He's the Director of Product Management with SHR, and we're going to have him on along with us as also to share his news on what he felt was going on at HITEC. Doug, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. So I'm going to lead us through a little bit of this conversation today because as I had already mentioned, I was not at HITEC. I'm very sad I was not at HITEC. And, you know, while I'm mopping up my tears on this end, I'm hoping, Doug, maybe you could share us a little bit about how you felt the overall excitement was in the show and some of the key observations that you guys are taking away from this event.
Absolutely. So when you go through HITEC, there's so many different areas and venues you can go through. There's, of course, the opening ceremony. There's different sessions I went to. One in particular that I thought was really good, it was called Guest-Facing Technology. And it just so happened at the time, Amazon launched the Alexa for hospitality. I think that was on Tuesday during HITEC, and
right.
The guest experience, if you walked the show floor or you went to that session, it was all about voice and you know, moving away from just text and stuff like that. It was making it more personal. So whether it's through Alexa, where you just say, you know, I need a new towel, boom, you get a new towel. So it was really, really cool to see, not only from a technological standpoint, but also how people are accepting that type of technology.
I'm curious as to, Estella, what you think, because I got to tell you, I'm on the fence with it. I think it's a really interesting technology, but it's also kind of scary. But also at the same time, I think people are beyond being scared with the technology.
I think, yes, this year was very exciting to see at HITEC that artificial intelligence, but even machine learning is becoming more real in the sense that you see these companies actually applying it, even if it's starting with some prescribed scripts and then moving into learning more tone and intent, it is something that is coming. And I agree. The announcement from Amazon was very exciting because now vendors can use this specific platforms, or vendor can use items like the Echo Dots to give that way to natural voice. And natural voice is a place where guests or just in general consumers are evolving to. So it is going to be a platform where hotels will end up engaging their guests. But was there anyone in particular, Doug, that caught your eye, that did a good job in not having it be scary to interact with something that seemed artificial and just made an impact or an impression that it seemed natural?
There were a couple booths on the show floor that, as you walked by, they had the Echo Dot. They had, and I don't know the different technologies. One looks like an alarm clock, where they just said, "Here's the demo," and I just started talking, and it was very, very interactive. It worked great. And the fact that, like we said, Amazon has actually called it Amazon Alexa for hospitality. So it's only going to get better, because they're truly focusing on the hospitality industry, which means that the commands will be better. So it's very easy to use even at this stage.
And Glenn, you would have loved the opening keynote. It was the title of the keynote was Technology and the Power of the C-Suite. But it was just all about how the hospitality industry must think about technology in a holistic way. There was an article about it on Hotel News Now. But with as many podcasts as you do, you interface with C-suite executives from brands, independents, all across the board. I think just hearing in the keynote that they addressed adopting a broad technological solution would be something that would have made you happy, or something that would have, you would have related to and thought back of at least 12 podcasts.
Well, Estella, I could certainly relate to that because, each and every week on my my weekly show, the No Vacancy podcast, I do get the opportunity to talk to those folks in the C-suite on a regular basis. A lot of folks that are CEO levels, and it's interesting to see how they acknowledge now that all hotel companies are essentially or becoming technology companies. And if you don't know how to negotiate your way through this fast-changing digital world, then you're really going to be at a disadvantage. And while I didn't see the speech, I'm curious from you folks that did they address some of those issues about how they go and make sure that they have folks that are on their team that are ready for this new way of doing business in the 21st century?
I'll let Doug weigh in. From my perspective, I think the panel did a good job on speaking on real operational impact on any of the broken pieces of the missing data or communication. So it made it very real for those of us that work into technology to see how it affects their day to day. But I don't know that they necessarily addressed a path forward. What was your feeling about it, Doug?
There were kind of two takeaways, I'd say. Is one was they know the need to go into the new technologies like the room key via smartphone and the Alexa and those type areas. What was brought out though is the return on investment. When you're talking about a property where you're going to have to change out every single door lock, that was one of the concerns that was brought up was, okay, if I have to change out, and I'm going to make up a number, 300 door locks, at what point am I going to recoup the cost for something like that? Because that's a very expensive initial outlay of capital. The other thing that was brought out was, from a brand perspective, is that they're limited to what the brands will allow them to do. So even though they can look and see, I want to do digital signage or whatever, it has to meet whatever the brand's approach is. And some of the people on the panel had multiple brands. So they may have been 3 different brands that they were associated with. And so they had to do it 3 different ways.
Right. I think that's so interesting, Doug, because when you look at the brands and you talk about what actually means that brand, what is that brand mean to customers and within hospitality organizations, they've been preaching having strong what they call swim lanes, very definitive sides as to what they are and what they are not. And some hotels owners might have a lot of zeal for technology, but it goes above and beyond what the brand is ready for at that time, based on how much the traditional owner would want to invest, and also based on whether or not it makes sense for the brand at the price point they're selling the rooms at. So that sounds to me a fascinating struggle that some more of these forward-thinking hoteliers are currently thinking about.
But I think the fact that the conversations are happening is very positive, because at the end, it is a platform that the guests will want to interact with that hotel. Not necessarily narrowed into a particular property profile. Maybe a particular property profile will have a faster adopter, but at one point, it will be a place where hotels need to meet their guests and just like in everywhere else, make them feel expected. Yes, I was expecting to meet you here.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you, Estella, because the way I see it is, if you look at the general universe of amenities within the hospitality industry, one of the phrases that I've become very familiar with over my 20-plus year career is the idea of amenity creep. And I think this is the same kind of thing, but we could call it maybe techno creep, where stuff starts at one level and then becomes more standardized within society and therefore the hospitality business, and starts to trickle down from some of the more expensive hotel rooms down to mid-price and eventually even to economy levels. I mean, you think about some of the basic technologies that we see out there, such as, larger television sets or even air conditioning and high-speed internet. They're now throughout every single hotel in the country. And I expect the same over time for the technologies that you're talking about, Estella.
Correct. Very, very much so.
It's interesting you bring up the larger television, because that was one of the things that was brought up during the keynote, and how, and I don't know which panelist brought it up, but when they talked about it, they say, the TVs used to be 34 inches, 40 inches, and now they're 50, 65-inch TVs in your room, but they're ugly and they're black, right? I mean, so when you walk in the room, it's just this black empty window. And so I can't remember which brand it was, but they are going to start doing stuff on the screen to make it more like a picture, so it's always on. So that way it makes the room more pleasant than seeing this 65-inch just black rectangle.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I know this one particular art company that I happen to have done some work with, that they're doing sort of a video subscription service where every several months or so, those images that will be on either in screens in the lobby or the ones in the guest room will be able to continually be updated and changed. So it actually becomes more of a piece of art in the room instead of just staring into that deep, dark blackness, unless you want to turn on the news or sports or something. Here's one of the things that really frustrates me about the hotel industry in general is our infatuation with, you guys know what I'm going to say, millennials. So what are people thinking when it comes to millennials these days? How are they driving change within the hospitality industry, according to what you learned at HITEC this year in Houston?
Well, we probably went in with a particular notion on what we see from a booking perspective, but they actually did have a panel about it, of course.
What? Really?
Yes. So, Doug, you happened to attend that panel. Give us your perspective on it.
It was a really interesting, and there were 2 millennials on the panel, and the third one, I don't know how old he was, but they started talking, and what they were saying did not resonate with what I thought millennials wanted.
Which is why I preface by saying we have studied millennials from the perspective of their booking. So we did come with a particular notion. So you had a notion, and it wasn't gelling with what you were expecting.
Yeah, it wasn't what I thought was not what the panel was saying, but then a little bit into the conversation, someone raised their hand and they got the microphone, and this girl says, "I'm a millennial, And, let me explain to you what the millennials are. We're selfish. We want free stuff. We don't want to talk to anybody, and we're an activist. And so that really changed the whole dynamics of the panel, because the concept that was being discussed at the time was whether or not people are comfortable with having their room key on their phone. And she was a hotelier, and her point is I'm a millennial. I don't want to talk to you when I get to the hotel. I just want to get to my room and be done. So it was kind of really brought out that, and all of a sudden the whole dynamics changed where everyone was like, yeah, exactly. Or food and beverage. How do you make food and beverage? You're like, well, I'm just going to use Uber Eats or DoorDash. So that's what I had expected. But the first 10 minutes of the panel was not what I expected, and then it changed.
So would you agree that HITEC was a great forum in which, because attendees were able to interact, they kind of directed the panel to a real conversation of what millennials expect. Therefore, you would find it beneficial that they put the panel together after all?
Oh, absolutely. I think the panel started being more of a presentation and less of a discussion. And it really was this one girl, the millennial girl and I don't know what her name is, what hotel she's affiliated with. But when she brought up the conversation, it really made the entire session beneficial.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating to me because a lot of times I think we look at millennials, though, as this wholly separate group of people that have no relation to older generations, such as my Generation X and folks that came before me. But I think that what we're seeing, and I'd love for you guys to tell me if you disagree or not, that millennials are really just a little bit ahead of the technology adoption curve and expectation curve that the rest of us seem to fall in line with, albeit just a little bit slower and over a longer period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the panelists who was a millennial, and he threw out a number, I don't know exactly what it was, but, in 5 years or 10 years, 50% of the travelers are going to be millennials, which means that there's going to be some percentage that are the younger than millennials, which I think is Generation Z, which is even more technologically advanced. So now you're talking greater than 50% of all travelers are going to be technologically advanced, which means
that's so true. My kids are actually Generation Z, and they actually just speak in binary code. That's how technologically advanced they are. So it's amazing how the younger generation seems to lead change, and the other ones kind of come and follow through over time, which is again going back to why I think hotels need to be smart, interesting technology companies. I got one more issue that I really want to talk to you folks about before we bring in another guest to talk about the HSMAI's annual rock conference. But before we get into that, I want to talk about I don't know if it's one word or two words, but it's the one thing we hear over and over and over again after the word Alexa, and that is blockchain. So what did you learn about it there? How important is it? And what does it really mean?
So I went to the blockchain session, and unfortunately, the first slide that went up says blockchain is not Bitcoin, but unfortunately they talked for the next 30 minutes about Bitcoin. But really, yeah.
But just for clarity for our audience, blockchain is not Bitcoin. Thank you.
But
Bitcoin uses blockchain, correct?
Correct.
In the closing keynote, Teresa Payton, I think was her name, she introduced a little bit of blockchain. She didn't go into massive detail, but she explained it really well. And that was probably the best explanation that I understood, which is, your data is encrypted, but it's encrypted in pieces all over the place. So in order for someone to get the data, they can't just decrypt one section. They have to decrypt all of it. And it's hard to explain. I'm moving my hands and you can't see those.
I'm sure they look amazing spinning around, but I think to put it into layman's terms, and I know I'm going to be pretty lame saying this, but bits of data are a block. They form a chain, and you need to have the entire chain to decode all of that in order to get that piece of information you're looking for. If you're able to break into one or two of those pieces in the block, it's going to do you no good.
Yeah, I agree. The closing keynote was amazing. And just like we were talking a moment ago about the advancement in generations in regards to where we're going to meet our guests today, and our future guest is advancing more and more, she talked about that that's going to also mean an evolution in computing itself and the evolution in how we need to advance in regards to encryption, security, etc. Was that your take on it too, Doug?
Yeah, so today's computing is in ones and zeros, and she had brought up quantum computing. So if you take, for instance, like 128-bit encrypted, it takes days or weeks to decrypt. But with quantum computing, it can take minutes or seconds. So her thought was, within the next 5 to 10 years, quantum computing is going to be real, and that means encryption needs to also grow at the same level.
No, really just interesting channels from where we're meeting guests and where technology is going to bring us. So I believe that the intent of that opening keynote of thinking of everything holistically, it's not just about winning the millennial, but it is about advancing to where we need to meet with guests and with technology for serving them and for serving them securely.
So did you guys learn it all on what date Skynet's actually going to take over with all this artificial intelligence and computing power?
That's actually a great question. And so I went to the Is AI Coming to Hospitality? Michael Schubach from Infor Hospitality was the guest speaker. This was one of these exhibitor tutorials. He did a fantastic job explaining AI. So essentially, if you look at artificial intelligence, you have awareness, which is either weak or strong, and you have the focus of the AI, which is either narrow or broad. So Skynet, so the Terminator would be strongly aware and extremely broad, right? And so if you go on that curve where you're talking extremely aware, you're talking about AI that not only can make its own decisions, but is self-aware. So an example given was in the movie I, Robot, where all the robots just do whatever they're told, except for this one robot that kind of goes rogue, and that robot becomes self-aware. And that's where if you get to that point, it's somewhat concerning. And of course, there were two quotes. I can't remember one was from the CEO of Google and one was from Elon Musk, and they were both contradictory quotes. Google thinks it's the best than sliced bread, and Elon Musk thinks this is where humanity
the world ends.
Right.
So should I be scared of
yeah.
Not yet.
No, you should not be.
I think you should.
Because the awareness is weak and the focus is narrow.
So my cat can continue to be scared of the Roomba, but I'm okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, but I don't want to turn this conversation up on its head. One word for you, Westworld. Those robots are now self-aware, and I think they want to take over the world. So I'm hoping that they won't do the Wyatt Initiative. I hope it'll be more like Star Trek's Data, where that android is more natural and normal and doesn't want us all dead. But hey. Let's move on to a cheerier topic. I'd love to bring in Nicole Adair right now, and she's the head of revenue management over at SHR. And the cool thing was she had the opportunity to attend the ROC conference. That's HSMAI's Revenue Optimization Conference, which is held in conjunction with HITEC. Nicole, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
All right, so we're curious. We want to hear about what your experience was like from your position, head of revenue management over at the ROC conference. Tell us a little bit about, who was in attendance and what was the point of the event and some of the takeaways that you got from it.
Well, I thought HSMAI threw a really, really great event this year. There was great turnout. It's a really great, fun, incredibly intelligent community of revenue managers that get together from all levels of the organization. This year was particularly enjoyable because Kelly McGuire opened the session wearing kind of a cowboy centaur suit. So not something we get to see every day. But it was really great. And there was a bit of a pessimistic economic forecast to start the session, which no one ever likes to hear, especially from the revenue management perspective. But speaking of AI, we dove into a really great debate between Kelly and then Calvin Anderson with Red Lion about the future of revenue management and how it's going to be impacted by artificial intelligence and machine learning, and what that means for those of us in the profession, which is really interesting. The audience seems very split, kind of half and half. Both Kelly and Calvin were trying to win people over to their side with their great presentations, but I think it remained pretty split. And let's see what else we had. We had Think Like an Owner. We kind of went over with a great panel of executive level leadership in revenue management, kind of just what the future of the revenue manager's role looks like, and again, how to think like an owner, what owners and asset managers are looking for from those of us in the profession, and how that's going to continue to change as e-commerce and our roles in that area as well continue to develop. So that was really interesting, I think, for a lot of people to hear, because it's moving away from just the traditional revenue and distribution, and as it grows more at the upper levels, it's starting to encompass a whole lot more in the knowledge base. So getting that perspective was really interesting.
Right, and I think you could probably fold some of that AI into it as well when it plays into the personalization and creating special rates for individual travelers that are based on frequency, desires, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, it's very, very, very interesting what we are able to do today and will be able to do in the future as far as knowing the guest and really getting to follow the guest journey. I know that's something that Estella is particularly interested in and exploring, but just, what we're going to be able to do and offer to the guests, and how we can really personalize the booking process all the way through, their arrival on property and their experience, even following up, after their stay.
That's great. Well, hey, Nicole, I'm definitely interested in finding more. I do believe revenue management was the first entrance to start deploying just more advanced analytics in travel in general. I think it was air first and then hospitality, but I do believe they were the first, even just with algorithmic predictions, if you will. So I'm excited to what will come. But Nicole, Glenn and I had a really interesting podcast with Wendy Norris. We were talking about the cost of distribution and how that played a role in revenue management. So I was interested if you heard anything about it, either at ROC or at conversations from the attendees.
I didn't, and unfortunately, so I was there representing SHR, obviously getting to talk to a lot of wonderful hoteliers and revenue managers. I was unable to attend any of the breakout sessions because I was manning the SHR booth. So that wasn't something that came up in the general sessions, but it's definitely, always a topic of concern and conversation with revenue managers, with hoteliers, is really being able to bring more to the bottom line, not through rate, but like you said, through controlling your distribution costs and you're maximizing your channel profitability and not just your top line room revenue. And that does get more and more difficult as the channels just continue to grow. So it'll be interesting to see how we can adapt technology to help hoteliers control that distribution and really funnel the most profitable room and source down to the bottom line.
Excellent. So anybody have any more final thoughts on HITEC, on ROC, maybe what we can look forward to in the future? Where is this all heading? What's the one thing that listeners should take away from today's podcast? Estella?
I would encourage, if somebody has not attended HITEC, to attend a HITEC. It is really a great show. You, as a community, you see a lot of vendors in hospitality. You get to meet people that maybe were in one particular arm of the industry that have moved around and bring their perspective to whatever's going new. You get really exciting new entrants, and also a lot of knowledge from established providers that have deep knowledge in the industry. So I would just encourage as much as possible for hotels and chains to attend. I believe it is a great environment and really where hospitality meets technology.
Excellent. Doug?
Yeah, I agree. This was my second HITEC that I've gone to, and I intend to continue to go to the HITECs. Part of it is every year you see different growth, whether it's technological growth, you meet different hoteliers, you meet different vendors. I mean, I met a vendor that their sole job is they have technology to kill bed bugs.
Bed bugs?
But I thought, wow, I mean, using technology for something as simple as that was just so cool to see.
And I think it's also an environment that creates openness of collaboration. I mean, I saw vendors that are really competing vendors in the market, but that they're known each other for many, many years, and just great to see each other. Everyone happy to see each other, and you can knock out, just a whole list of meetings with collaborators, clients, and just future ideas that you want to run by some great minds at HITEC.
I love that. Now, while there are some mean people in the hospitality industry, generally speaking, it's really a culture of everyone can do it together. I see the same thing on the financial side of the business, where a lot of the franchise sales folks, they're all competing against each other, but at the end of the day, they go and they hang out and they're all friends. And I love that spirit of togetherness, because I really believe if all of us work together, we could all be more successful. Nicole, what was your big takeaway from Rock?
Well, I guess I will just have to kind of piggyback on the sentiments of Doug and Estella, in that I think it's so valuable, and it's so great to just get to spend the day with really the brightest minds in revenue management, all in one room, in one area. And it's not just like static presentations and PowerPoints. It's very interactive, very discussion based. The breakout sessions are always very informative. They have some great panelists. And then you also, HITEC has all of the vendors, but then at Rock, then you also get to a bit more curated, I guess I would say, to explore people that are really, really just providing technology for what we as revenue managers do and deal with on a day-to-day basis. So I think there's a lot of stuff to explore and discover at Rock every year.
Beautiful. And every single year, you should check out both the HITEC show and Rock. For nothing else, you get to go to a great city. And I got to tell you, everybody, the parties that they have every single night are some of the best. And I go to some of these hotel franchise conferences, and they got great parties. These shame them. I love them. It's a great way to be social, to meet new people, to network in the off hours. Plus, that show floor is an absolutely exciting, vibrant place to be. And if you're not going to HITEC, if you're not going to Rock, you're missing out on something. Mark your calendars down for next June to attend those events. Before I wrap up this third episode of the 10-episode first season of the Hotel Tech Podcast, anybody have any final thoughts? Maybe you want to conclude with something, Estella?
Just to thank you so much, Glenn. We hope we have brought you up to date, and that you now feel like through us you got a connection to HITEC.
I really do, and I got to tell you, I feel a lot less guilty because I did have to stay home. I couldn't make it. My kids had the moving up ceremony going from 8th grade to high school. Couldn't miss that, for that 3 seconds of them walking across the stage. So that was good. I'm sad I wasn't there, but I promise to be there next year. And I want to thank everybody here for listening today. Got episode 3 of 10 in the books. So exciting. We've got so many great episodes coming at you over the next couple of weeks and month. This is going to be great stuff. If you want to hear this episode or any other episodes, the first 2 in our series, for example, including the first episode that Estella mentioned, you can check that out on SHR's website at shr.global or at novacancynews.com, or wherever podcasts are found, such as Apple Podcasts, Google Play. Just type in No Vacancy. Those shows will be there. We're sharing the feed to make sure everybody gets to hear this incredible tech show that we're doing. And be sure to like us online. Check out the No Vacancy Facebook page, like SHR on their Facebook page, and everywhere else. We need your attention. We love your attention. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next time with the Hotel Tech Podcast. Thanks for listening.